How's it going, everybody? Ryan Devlin here. Happy to be back on the Jazz Lesson Videos channel. In this video, I want to break down some of my favorite ways to practice and apply the augmented sound. These ideas are for anyone who's listened to a solo and thought, what is that bright, inside yet outside modern sounding scale or line, and how can I get that into my playing? I've thought this when I've listened to all of my favorite players. The augmented scale has been a part of jazz for decades, from players like Coltrane to Woody Shaw, all the way to more modern voices like Seamus Blake and Donnie McClaslin, who I got to study with at New England Conservatory. The augmented scale can be defined in many ways, but the most straightforward way is thinking about any triad and then raising your fifth degree. The same technique can be applied to scales or chords. For example, take a minor pentatonic, 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. Raise the fifth. Take a major scale, raise the fifth. That's the major bebop scale. We'll talk about that more later on in this video. So really, augmented is anything with a raised 5. By studying the relationship between augmented scales, sharp 5 chords, and triad pairs, you can start to hear how this sound can create those bright inside and outside ideas that add color and forward momentum to your lines. And with these concepts we're going to talk about today, it'll be easy to integrate them into your solo. And all of the material that we're going over today comes from my newest resource with jazz lesson videos called 125 Augmented Phrases. This PDF dives deep into how the augmented sound functions across different harmonic situations, from scale-based vocabulary to applied lines and triad pair motion. Here's a quick overview of the book. You get augmented scale patterns, dominant 7 sharp 5 phrases in and outside of 2-5-1 progressions, augmented pentatonics, and augmented triad pair concepts. So let's go through a few of these ideas together. So our first concept we're going to check out from my book is the augmented scale patterns. So first of all, what is the augmented scale? The augmented scale is basically a augmented triad that every chord tone of your augmented triad is approached by half step. So if we think about the C augmented scale, it goes C, E flat to E, G natural to G sharp, and then B natural to then C again. So this is a hexatonic scale. It's a 6-note scale. And we're going to take a look at a pattern that I keep the same going through all of my hexatonic scale or the augmented scale. Very similar to how we learn pentatonic patterns. So this is the first pattern from our book, and it's a descending pattern with our augmented scale. Let's take a listen to how it sounds. So just like any new scale that we introduce, a great way to practice this is in the pattern and in different keys. Now, what's cool about a symmetrical scale is that any note in one of our augmented triads, the scale is the same starting on one of those notes. So, for example, the C augmented scale, the E augmented scale, and the A flat or G sharp augmented scale is exactly the same. So, you only have to learn 4 different scales because 3 times 4 is 12. That covers all 12 notes. So this pattern you can play in 4 different keys. You've got it in all 12. So that's a great first step of learning this. Now, let's talk about the chord changes that this works over. Because it's one thing to be able to play the pattern confidently, and it's another thing to be able to play this in improvising on different chord changes. So the augmented scale works over C major, A flat major, and E major, the 3 chord tones of our triad. Also B7 flat 9 and F minor major 7. Here's what that line sounds like over all of those chord changes. So, a direct way to apply this into your improvising is pick a tune that's in one of those key centers and immediately apply this. Here's me playing this over rhythm changes, Oleo, which is in concert B flat major, C major for me on tenor, and I'm going to play this over the A sections, so that C major sound is being used a lot. Here's the pattern with my improvising over Oleo. What's cool about this augmented scale is that we can apply different techniques alongside with the augmented scale, like chromatic approach and minor pentatonics. In the resource, I also have multiple examples of the augmented scale being used in and out of those contexts as well. This really starts to help us gain a true feeling of improvisation with this concept when you can combine them with other traditional concepts in jazz. Now let's move on to our second concept for this video and from my resource. This is going to be on 2-5-7 sharp 5-1 progressions. So now what we're doing is we're taking a traditional 2-5-1 phrase, and on the 5 chord, we're going to be playing the dominant sharp 5 bebop scale. That is your regular bebop scale, or Mixolydian with a passing tone. It's spelled like C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, B natural C. That's traditional. We're going to make the passing tone between the 5th and the 6th instead of between the 7th and the root. So the new scale, or the dominant 7 sharp 5 bebop scale, is going to be C, D, E, F, G natural, G sharp, A, B flat, C. And in our resource, we have different examples of lines that are just with that scale without the 2-5-1 progression and with the 2-5-1 progression. What we're going to talk about right now is applying it to a 2-5-1. So in our resource, if we take a look at this section, on our 2 chord, I stay diatonic and play on G minor 7. I'm playing just G minor 7 tonalities, sometimes in arpeggios, sometimes in scales. Then when I get to our C7 sharp 5 chord, I'm really emphasizing the sharp 5 tonality and then resolving to F major 7. Let's take a listen to phrase number 2 from this section of our resource. So as you can hear, I'm playing diatonically on our 2 chord. I'm starting on D and going up a minor pentatonic E phrase from D over G minor, playing the G minor pentatonic scale starting on the 5. Then I play a really common sharp 5 phrase on our sharp 5 chord, C, G sharp, G natural, F, targeting the 3rd, and then C, G sharp, E, F, resolving to the root of that chord. So another great way to apply this to improvising is to find a tune that has a 2-5-1 in this key center and apply the lick. So here's me playing the tune It Could Happen to You, which is in the key center of F, and there's a couple 2-5-1s that go G minor, C7, F, and I'm going to apply this sharp 5 sound over the 2-5-1 in It Could Happen to You. Let's take a listen. All right, let's move on to concept number 3 in this video. This is going to be on the section of augmented triad pairs from our resource. So in our resource, we have a couple different versions of augmented triad pairs, some with minor chords, some with other augmented chords. So let's take a look at 2 different ones. We're going to look at 2 augmented triads a whole step apart. This is the same thing as the whole tone scale. Let's take a listen to one of our patterns from our resource. This pattern works over C7, F sharp 7, B7 sharp 5, and D7 altered. Let's take a listen to this pattern with all of those chord changes being played underneath. Let's take a look at another triad pair example from our resource. This time, this is an augmented triad paired with a minor triad, a tritone apart. So now we're taking C augmented and F sharp minor triad. Let's take a listen to a pattern from our resource. This cool combination of bright and dark works over C7, F sharp minor 7 flat 5, A major 7, and E7 flat 13. Let's take a listen to the pattern now with those chords. These triad pairs are a great way of creating angular intervallic motion through the harmony that has that augmented sound in it. This approach gives your lines built-in tension and release. Because the cool thing about triad pairs are you usually have inside notes to a chord and outside notes. It's not like it just fits one tonality. So you kind of have this snaking through the harmony motion, especially with these designed patterns. It's one of the most expressive ways to stretch the augmented sound in your solo, and a lot of my favorite players do this. All right, that wraps up today's video. I hope you liked diving into my new resource on the augmented sound. This is just a glimpse into this full resource, so if you'd like to dive in deeper, click the link in the description below and use the code AUGMENTED5 for $5 off the purchase of the PDF book. Make sure to subscribe, like the video, let us know what you want us to talk about in our next video, and I'll see you next time.